Reddit Paranormal. I saw something in the woods of the Black Hills, San Diego. Hi everyone, first time posting and on mobile, so sorry if the formatting is subpar. I recently joined r/paranormal after reading some of your experience. I wanted to share my own and see if I can get your opinions on what me and my family saw in the Black Hills of South Dakota. About 5 years ago, when I was 17, I visited some of my family who lived in San Diego and worked there for the summer. After about a month, my brother's sister and her husband decided to do what Americans do best and go shoot guns in the woods. I had to work evening shift, so it was decided we go after around 10 p.m. Once my shift ended, we went to their house to pack up the truck with some snacks, guns, and ammo. The drive took around 45 minutes and it took us up a dirt road surrounded by trees and tall grass. Eventually, it opened up into a clearing that was pretty open and flat. The nearest tree line was about 100 feet away. It was pretty dark, but the clearing was lit up by trucks' headlights. I kind of felt uneasy, but I chalked that up to just being in the woods at night. For the first 20 minutes, nothing really happened. We were just setting up plastic bottles, those plastic gallon buckets you'd get water out of at an office. There was a feeling of being watched that we all felt. The area suddenly reeked of spoiled eggs. Those of you who have shotguns know that they can smell, but even since going to the military, no amount of guns explosions have smelt this bad. We looked around to see if we could see the source, and what I saw, I can still vividly remember to this day. What I saw was a thin humanoid figure crouching down looking at us. Even while crouching down, it was still about 6 foot in height. When I say this figure was thin, I mean skin and bones barely do it justice. The even more weird thing about this was we all saw the figure in different spots in the tree line, but we all described the same features. Tall, thin, had long dark hair. We quickly packed up what we could and left. The feeling of dread that day will forever haunt me. Since then, my brother mentioned the area might have been a native territory, but I don't know if that's true. Every once in a while, I think back on the day and look up different stories and encounters people have in woods, but nothing quite resembles what we saw that day. I hope you guys enjoyed our first story of the night. That comes from the Reddit user Kinsu1, and definitely a creepy story. It's always even more interesting and believable when there's multiple witnesses, like in this case, and they all saw the same thing. Very, very spooky. We're going to move on to the next one now. Our next story comes from Mischievous Dagger, titled, I Think I Used to Live in a Haunted House. Growing up, I always had to move from one place to another. There was this apartment in particular that terrified me. I was about 7 or 8 when weird stuff started happening. Basically, things would go missing. Things getting moved, hearing footsteps in the hallways. Once my dad heard someone small running. He thought it was my sister and called her, but no one answered. When he came to check on me and my sister, he found us both fast asleep. We always shared a room. One time, my mom baked a cake at night. I don't know why she decided to bake it at night, but she did. At night, we heard muffled chewing sounds. It wasn't my parents, as they had gone to sleep hours before that. Their room was in front of mine, and I would have seen them coming out. The next day, we found half of the cake gone. Another time, my dad bought a GPS. He was very happy with it and put it on the table. The next day, it was gone. Me and my sister didn't touch it because my dad was very strict, and we used to be scared of what would happen if we touched it. My mom was home all day, but she's a busy woman and couldn't care less about a GPS. It was gone for a week. Then one day, my dad called my mom asking her where she found the GPS. It was right where he left it. This freaks me out the most. I had a paper with a saint on it. We called it a saint here. No matter how many times I got rid of the saint, it would always come back. I ripped it apart so many times, I shredded it, and would always return to my desk. I no longer live in that house, but every time I walk by it, I get this feeling of dread. Sorry that this story is very long. Well, it wasn't that long. Definitely an interesting story. Pretty wild that she had this sheet of paper that had some type of saint on it that she would throw away or tear up, and it would just keep reappearing. The only time I've ever heard of that, I heard one story about a Ouija board that was burned and all these types of things, and it just kept coming back. But we appreciate Mischievous Dagger for sharing. Pretty crazy story. We're going to go ahead and swing to the next one now. This one comes from Royal Blue 93, titled Woman Screaming in My Face That She'll See Me in Hell. Spent the night at a poor farm restored to a hotel. I slept with my then boyfriend, now husband, and came to in the middle of the night. I saw a woman dressed in rags standing above me, spitting with rage that I was an adulteress and that she would see me in hell, where I would burn for my sins, quote unquote. She was obviously inferring that I was sleeping with a man unmarried and that it was a sin and that somehow she was also a sinner and also damned to hell. The hatred she has is incredibly terrifying, and I've never felt the degree of existential dread in my life like that night. I actually threw up from fear and sobbed. Really hard to explain that story to people. Well, thanks for sharing, Rio Blue 93. Definitely a scary story, and hope that it gets better for you. And that wraps up today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay spooky.